how to set up a V2Ray proxy server with a VPS or virtual private server, domain name, Nginx web server, Certbot to get a Let's Encrypt SSL certificate, and Qv2ray client. The very first thing we'll be doing is setting up our V2Ray proxy server on a cloud hosting provider called DigitalOcean. I'll then take you through the process of getting a domain name and pointing your Namecheap domain name to DigitalOcean's DNS. And then lastly, I'll show you how to set up the V2Ray client configuration on the client called Qv2ray. Let's start off by setting up our V2Ray proxy server. So I'm just going to go back to my first tab here. The very first thing you need to do is click on my referral link in the video description below to be taken to DigitalOcean's sign up page. Using my referral link, you'll be able to try DigitalOcean for free with a $200 credit for 60 days. I'll put this referral link in the video description below. Create an account by either using your email address, Google account, or GitHub account. Once you've gone through the process of creating your account, sign in to DigitalOcean. Once you've signed into your newly created DigitalOcean account, you should have your $200 free DigitalOcean cloud credits. This will allow you to use V2Ray completely for free for 60 days. Once you're on your DigitalOcean dashboard, at the top right hand corner, you should see a button which says Create. Click on it to be greeted with a drop down menu. From the list of DigitalOcean services, the one that we want is called Droplets, which allows us to create cloud servers. Click on Droplets. You'll first need to choose the region of your VPS. When you connect to your V2Ray server using your V2Ray client, you'll have the same IP address and region as the server location that you pick here. For this video demonstration, I'm going to be going with a German VPS in Frankfurt, so all I'm going to do is click on it to select it. Once you've chosen your region, scroll down until you see where it says choose an image. As you can see, by default, Ubuntu is selected, and that's the operating system that we're going to be going with. The version of Ubuntu that we're going to be going with is not this version, so all I'm going to do is click on this arrow here underneath version, and I'm going to select the version 22.04 LTS x64. So I'm just going to click on it to select it. Next, we'll need to choose our VPS server size. We have shared CPU and dedicated CPU. Dedicated CPU is more expensive and shared CPU is more reasonable. I'm going to be going with shared, so all you need to do is click on it to select it. I'm now going to scroll down until you see where it says CPU options. You have regular CPU, which is the cheapest, premium Intel, and premium AMD. I'm going to be going with premium AMD, and because I'm only setting up a V2Ray proxy server for myself, I'm going to be going with the $7 a month server, which gives me 1GB of RAM, an AMD CPU, 25GB NVMe SSD, and 1000GB or 1TB of transfer. If you want to host multiple clients for your V2Ray proxy server, you may need a more premium plan. So all I'm going to do is click on the $7 a month plan here. I'm now going to continue scrolling down until I see where it says choose authentication method. You have the option between SSH key or password. I'm sticking with password, and then underneath where it says create root password, we'll need to enter in a password, and these are the password requirements, so I'm just going to pick a password now. Once you've entered in your password, continue scrolling down until you see where it says hostname. Underneath hostname, there's a text box where we'll need to give our droplet a name, so I'm going to delete the pre-typed information here. I'm going to call my server V2Ray. Once you've given your server a name, click on Create Droplet. The cloud server will then begin spinning up. I'll be back with you guys once the progress bar has finished. Alright guys, I'm back. Our V2Ray Droplet is now up and running, and you can tell it's up and running by the green status symbol there. The next thing we need now is to buy a domain name, so I'm just going to go to my other tab here to go to Namecheap, and what you're going to need to do is click on my referral link in the video description below for Namecheap to be taken to the following page. As you can see, as a newcomer to Namecheap, you have a lot of discounts for domain names. For this video demonstration, I'm going to be going with a .com domain name. Using my referral link gives you a hefty discount of 57% at the time of recording of this video. Now, I'm not a newcomer, so I most likely won't get this discount. However, you are, so you will get the discount. Once you know what domain name you want, click on it. So I'm going to click on the .com here, and now we'll need to choose the .com domain name. Click on this box and then enter the domain name. So I'm going to be going with a domain name called packetofcrisps.com. Once you've picked your domain name, click on search. And as you can see guys, I don't get the discount as I'm not a newcomer, but the good thing on the other hand is that packetofcrisps.com is available to purchase. So all I'm going to do now is add it to my cart by clicking on add to cart and then click on checkout. Then click on confirm order, and then you'll need to create a Namecheap account if you don't already have one. So you'll need to enter in a username, pick a password, enter in your personal information, and then click on create account and continue. For me, I do have a Namecheap account, so I'm going to log into my Namecheap account. So I'm just going to enter in my username and then enter my password. And then I'm going to click on sign in and continue. Once you've signed into your Namecheap account, you'll be taken to the billing section. You'll need to fill in your billing details, and once you've done that, simply click on continue. You get a final chance to review your order. Once you've done that, just simply click on pay now. Your order will then be processed by Namecheap. Great, so we've got our domain name now. What we need to now do is manage our domain name. To do this, simply click on manage to the right hand side of your domain name to be taken to your domain name's details. In the domain tab, scroll down until you see where it says Name Servers. In the Name Servers section, by default, it should be set to Namecheap Basic DNS. You want to change that, so simply click on this drop down arrow here and click on Custom DNS. In this section, we'll need to enter our DigitalOcean DNS records. To get those, we'll need to go back to our DigitalOcean dashboard. So I'm just going to go back to the previous tab here. I'm going to click on Create, and then I'm going to look for where it says Domains/DNS. Click on Domains/DNS. You'll now be in the networking section in DigitalOcean and on the Domains tab. As you can see, we don't have any domains added in networking. We're going to add our newly bought Namecheap domain name. So in the text box which says enter domain name, click on it and then enter the name of your domain name. So mine is packetofcrisps.com. Once you've entered in your domain name, to the right hand side, you can see your project, which you don't need to select as we only have one project. And then further to the right, you can see it says add domain. Click on Add Domain. We now have successfully added our domain name to DigitalOcean. We'll now need to find DigitalOcean's DNS records. To do this, scroll down until you see where it says DNS records. In the value column, you can see 3 DNS records. We'll need to copy each of these DNS records and paste them into Namecheap. Let's start off by copying the first DNS record. So right next to it, there's a word copy. Just click on copy and you'll have copied the first DNS record. Go back to your domain's name server section and paste in your first DigitalOcean DNS record. And do this for the next one. And finally, for the third one, we'll need to click on Add Name Server to allow for 3 DNS records to be added. Go back one more time to DigitalOcean, copy the third DNS record, and then paste in the final DigitalOcean record. And then click on the green check mark here to save the changes you have just made to your DNS. And as you can see, it says DNS server update may take up to 48 hours to take effect. So it could take at most 48 hours for your domain name, which in my case is packetofcrisps.com, to point to DigitalOcean. This is called the propagation time. From my experience with a fresh domain name and pointing it to a new DNS, it usually takes around an hour. But keep this in mind, it can take 48 hours. The next thing we need to do is go back to our DigitalOcean dashboard, and then above DNS records, we'll need to create a new record. Underneath where it says create new record, you can see there's A records, AAAA records, 4 A's, CNAME records, MX records, TXT, NS, SRV, CAA. The record that we need is the A record, so simply click on that. In the hostname text box, we're going to be picking what comes before our domain name. So for example, most websites use www. And then your domain name, so packetofcrisps.com. That's usually reserved for websites. For our V2Ray proxy server, I would advise you to go with something else. So for example, you could type bypass, which means your V2Ray server, to connect to it would be bypass.packetofcrisps.com. Or you can go with the word proxy, so that would be proxy.packetofcrisps.com. For this video demonstration, I'm going to be going with the word bypass. Underneath you have a little preview of what the full link will be. And to the right hand side it says will direct to, and a text box where we'll need to select our V2Ray server. So I'm going to click on this text box here, and of course I'm going to be selecting the V2Ray Frankfurt server, and that's our IP address for our server. So all I'm going to do is click on it. To the right hand side, leave the TTL as default and then click on create record. Once you've created the A record, it will be added to your DNS records. So as you can see, we've got a new A record here. The host name is bypass.packetofcrisps.com. It redirects to our V2Ray proxy server that we just spin up, and there's our TTL. The next thing we're going to do is log in to our V2Ray server using an SSH client. The client that I usually go for is called Putty. So I'm just going to go to this tab here to the Putty website. I'm on Windows, so Putty works for me. If you don't have Windows, you'll need to find another SSH client. I'm not going to take you through the process of downloading and installing Putty, as I have a video tutorial on my YouTube channel already. I'll put a link in the video description and as a card at the top right hand corner of this video to that step-by-step Putty installation video. Once you've installed Putty, we'll need to open up the client, so I'm just going to minimize my browser here, and there we go, we've got Putty on our desktop now. So I'm just going to double click on the Putty shortcut here to open it. Once you've got Putty open, we'll need to enter the host name or IP address of our V2Ray proxy server. To do this, we'll need to open back up our browser, go to our DigitalOcean tab, and then copy the IP address of our server. I'm now going to minimize my browser once again, and I'm going to paste in our server's IP address. Once done, click on Open. You'll then be greeted with this PuTTY security alert, which asks you if you want to cache the PuTTY SSH host key. You have the option to accept, connect once, or cancel. I'm going to click on Accept. Maximize the PuTTY terminal window here, and now you'll need to log in as. For DigitalOcean servers, the username is always root, so type root and then hit enter, and then we'll need to enter the root password that we set up for our DigitalOcean server. You can either type in your password or right-click to paste in your copied password on PuTTY for Windows. Once you've entered in your password, hit enter on your keyboard. You'll now be logged into your DigitalOcean VPS, called V2Ray in my case. Whenever you start a new server, the very first thing you need to do is update it. So type the following command. All these commands, by the way, will be in the video description below. So all you need to do is simply copy those commands, right-click to paste them in the PuTTY terminal window, and then of course hit enter on your keyboard. So the very first command I'm going to type in here is apt-get space update. Once you've typed this command in, hit enter on your keyboard. Once our server has been updated, the next thing we need to do is to download and install the V2Ray proxy server onto our VPS. To do this, I'm just going to open back up my browser and navigate to the following tab, which will take us to the GitHub for V2Fly, where we can grab the FHS install for V2Ray. So what exactly is that? Well, that's the bash script for V2Ray for installing V2Ray in operating systems. So I'm just going to scroll down here until I see where it says V2Ray, and this is the command that I'm after. You won't actually need to go to this website, as this command will be in the video description below. So I'm just going to copy this command from the bracket all the way to where it says bash, and I'm not going to copy the hash. Once I've done that, I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to copy. I'm now going to go back to my PuTTY terminal window. I'm going to right click to paste this command in here, and I'm going to hit enter on my keyboard. The bash script will then install V2Ray onto our DigitalOcean server. The next thing we need to do is enable V2Ray. To do this, type systemctl space enable space V2Ray and then hit enter on your keyboard. Now we'll need to start V2Ray. Again, type systemctl space start space V2Ray. Once you've entered this command in, hit enter on your keyboard. Now we'll need to check the status of V2Ray to see if it is indeed running. So type systemctl space status space V2Ray and then hit enter on your keyboard. And as you can see, it says active and running. After checking the status of your V2Ray server, if you are unable to type any further commands because there's a word that says end, just press Q on your keyboard to continue typing in commands. Once you've checked the status of V2Ray, what we'll need to do now is edit a configuration file. If we look closely at the very last line here, you can see the configuration file is called config.json and it's in /user/local/etc/V2Ray. So all I'm going to do is navigate to that directory. So I'm going to type cd space /usr/local/etc/V2Ray. The cd in the command stands for change directory. Once you've typed in the following command, hit enter on your keyboard. You'll now be in that directory. To check what files exist in this directory that you're now in, type ls and then hit enter on your keyboard. And as you can see, guys, there is a single file called config.json. Now what we need to do is open up this configuration file using a terminal text editor. I'm going to be using nano, so type nano space config.json. Once you've typed in nano space config.json, hit enter on your keyboard. You'll then be brought up with pretty much a blank file. There's two squiggly brackets in here which I'm going to delete, so I'm going to use my arrow keys to get in front of them, and then I'm going to use the backspace button to delete both brackets. I'm now going to minimize PuTTY and minimize my browser, and I'm going to open up the configure V2Ray server file here. All this file's contents will be in the video description below. In this file, we're going to be editing the green parts of the file. So as you can see, we're going to need to add an ID. To get an ID, we're going to need to generate it. To do this, open up your browser and navigate to the following URL address, UUIDgenerator.net. Once you've done that, a random UUID will be generated for you. As you can see, this is my UUID here. All I'm going to do is click on copy to copy it. I'm going to open back up my Word document here. I'm going to delete the green part and I'm going to paste in my UUID. I'm going to highlight all the file's contents and copy them. Now I can go back to my PuTTY terminal window and right click to paste. Now what we'll need to do is save the changes that we have just made to the config.json file. To do this, type Ctrl+O on your keyboard. It will then ask you to name your file. You must leave it as config.json and then hit enter on your keyboard. Great, so the changes you have just made to your file have been saved. Now what we need to do is exit the nano text editor by pressing Ctrl+X on our keyboard. Now we're brought back to the putty command line. As you can see, we're currently in the user/local/etc/v2ray directory. The directory that we actually need to be in is our root directory, so simply type cd, short for change directory, hit enter on your keyboard to go back to our previous directory. The next thing we need to do is set up our Nginx web server. To do this, type apt-get space install space nginx space -y. Once you've typed this in, hit enter on your keyboard. Great, now that we've installed Nginx, the next command we need to type is the command for Certbot to get our Let's Encrypt SSL certificate. To do this, type the following command: apt-get space install space certbot space python3 certbot -nginx. Once you've typed in the following command, hit enter on your keyboard. Press Y on your keyboard and hit enter on your keyboard. Next, type certbot space -nginx. Once you've typed this in, hit enter on your keyboard. For the SSL certificate using Let's Encrypt on Certbot, you'll be asked to enter in your email address, which as you can see says used for urgent renewal and security notices. So I'm just going to enter in my email address now. Once you've entered in your email address, hit enter on your keyboard. You'll then be asked to read the terms of service at the following URL address and to choose Y for yes or N for no if you agree to those terms. Please read the terms of service. I'm going to press Y and then hit enter. You'll then be asked if you would like to share your email address with the Electronic Frontier Foundation, which is a partner of Let's Encrypt and Certbot. I'm going to type N for no as I don't want to. You can type Y if you want, and then I'm going to hit enter on my keyboard. Next, you'll be asked to enter the domain names you would like on your certificate. This is where we enter our domain name for our V2Ray proxy server, which is the A record that we entered in our DigitalOcean DNS record section. So all I'm going to do now is open back up my browser and go back to DigitalOcean. In the DNS records, look for where it says hostname and copy the entire URL address. So I'll be copying bypass.packetofcrisps.com. Once you've clicked on copy, go back to your putty terminal window and right-click to paste. Once you've pasted in whatever your domain name is, hit enter on your keyboard. An SSL certificate will then be requested for your chosen domain name, and if successful, you should see the messaging which says successfully deployed certificate for and then your domain name. Congratulations, you have successfully enabled HTTPS. So now I've got HTTPS for bypass.packetofcrisps.com. Great, so we've now got our HTTPS SSL certificate. We can check the certificate if it has indeed been issued by opening up our browser and opening up a fresh tab and then go into that web address. So I'm just going to type in here bypass.packetofcrisps.com. Once you've typed in your domain name in here, hit enter on your keyboard. And as you can see, guys, if we look at the top of our browser, we have the padlock symbol, which means we've got HTTPS for our server, and we're greeted with a welcome to Nginx default web page, which means we also have Nginx installed on our server. If you don't see the welcome to Nginx page, it means your DNS for your domain name has not propagated yet. So you'll just need to be patient. Once you're greeted with this page, and you've got your SSL certificate for your domain name, you can go back to putty. The next thing we need to do is set up our Nginx configuration file. To do this, you'll need to navigate to the file by typing in the following command: cd space /etc/nginx/sites-available. Once you've typed that in, hit enter on your keyboard. Alright guys, as you can see, I have a little mistake here. I haven't been taken to that directory because I've spelled available wrong. So it says no such file or directory available. That's correct because the directory has the incorrect spelling for available. I spelled available with an I instead of an A. So I'm just going to retype that command in. So again, I'm going to type cd space /etc/nginx/sites -available for the word available. We should now have no trouble navigating to this directory, so I'm just going to hit enter on my keyboard. And there we go, we're in that directory now. So be careful of typos, guys. Once you're in that directory, type ls on your keyboard to see all the files in that directory. As you can see, we've got a file called default. This time, instead of opening up our file using a text editor, we're actually going to delete the file and then recreate it. So to remove a file or delete a file, in this case, the default file, we'll need to type rm for remove space and then the word default, which is the name of the file that we want deleted. Then hit enter on our keyboard. To check if that file has been deleted, type ls. Again, guys, be careful of typos. I only typed L instead of ls, so I'm going to retype that. ls and then hit enter. And as you can see, there is no files in the directory that we're in. To create the default file once again, what we'll need to do is type nano space and then the word default. This will now recreate the default file. Once you've typed that in, hit enter on your keyboard. Our terminal text editor will now open, and as you can see, the file is blank. We're going to need to paste something in here, so I'm just going to minimize putty for the time being, going to minimize my browser. I'm going to close out of the V2Ray configuration file here, and now I'm going to open up the configure Nginx file. Again, guys, we're going to be changing the green highlighted parts. So as you can see, where it says bypass.domain.com, you're going to change the word domain to your actual domain name. So for example, I'm going to delete the word domain in here, and then I'm going to type my domain name, which is packet of crisps, and I'm going to do the same for this one. The same for the one below it. Remember, guys, you need to watch your spelling. Any mistake, an extra full stop or a space will cause problems. And then I'm going to do the next line here. And then the last one. So there's 5 changes that you need to make in this part. This whole Nginx configuration will be in the video description below. I'm now going to highlight the entire document. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to minimize this window, and I'm going to open back up putty. I'm now going to right click in the terminal window to paste in our Nginx configuration information. Now what we'll need to do is save the changes we have just made to this default file. To do this, press Ctrl+O, enter on your keyboard, and Ctrl+X to exit out of terminal. Now what we need to do is go back to our root directory, so type cd to change directory. Once you're back in your root directory, we need to check if everything is working correctly. Type the following: nginx space -t. Once you've typed this in, hit enter on your keyboard. If you have done everything correctly so far, you should see syntax is okay, test is successful. Next, we'll need to restart Nginx. Type systemctl space restart space Nginx, and then hit enter on your keyboard. Now I'll need to check the status of our Nginx web server. Type systemctl space status space Nginx, and then hit enter on your keyboard. And as you can see, guys, our Nginx web server is active and running. Now what we'll need to do is restart our V2Ray server. To do this, type systemctl space restart space V2Ray. Once you've typed this in, hit enter on your keyboard. And lastly, the final command is to check the status of V2Ray. To do this, type systemctl space status space V2Ray, and then hit enter on your keyboard. And as you can see, V2Ray is active and running. We are now finished entering commands into the terminal, and we can close it by navigating to the top right hand corner, clicking on the X, and then clicking on OK to exit out of your terminal client. Now what we need to do is install the V2Ray client so that we can connect to our server. To do this, open up your browser and navigate to the following URL address: github.com/qv2ray/releases. The latest release and the final release is Qv2ray 2.7.0 - the end. What you'll need to do is find the appropriate version for your operating system. I'm on Windows. You also have available Linux and Mac OS. I'm on Windows, so I'm going to be downloading Qv2ray v 2.70 windows-installer.exe. So all I'm going to do is click on the Windows installer here to start the download. I'll be back with you guys once the Qv2ray client has been downloaded. Alright, I'm back. Once Qv2ray has been downloaded, click on the arrow next to your download and then click on open. If you're on Windows, you'll be greeted with the user account control. You have the option to press yes or no. I'm going to click on yes. Once you've done that, the Qv2ray setup will open. Click next. If you agree to the license agreement, click I agree. If you don't, you can click on cancel. I'm going to click on I agree. You can change the destination folder if you want. I'm going to leave it as it is and click on next. You have the option create a shortcut in your start menu if you leave this uncheckmarked. I do not want to create shortcuts on the start menu, so I'm going to checkmark this and then I'm going to click install. Qv2ray has now been installed, so I'm just going to click on finish here. To check if it has been installed, I'm just going to minimize my browser, and as you can see, I've got the Qv2ray shortcut on my desktop, which means our client has been successfully installed. Before we open up the V2Ray client, we're going to need the configuration files for V2Ray for the client side. So I'm just going to open back up my browser once again, and I'm going to navigate to the following URL address, which is github.com/v2fly/v2ray-core/releases/tag/v4.45.2. At the time of recording of this video, the latest non-preview version of V2Fly V2Ray Core is V or version 4.45.2. I would always recommend getting the latest release as long as it is the non-preview release. I wouldn't bother going with the preview release, always go with the finished version, which at the time of recording of this video is 4.45.2. Remember, all these links to this version is in the video description below. Now I'm just going to scroll down until I see where it says assets. As you can see, you've got Android, you've got FreeBSD, you've got Linux, you've also got Mac, many operating systems, but the operating system that I want is for Windows because I'm on a Windows computer, specifically a 64-bit Windows computer. So I'm going to be going with V2Ray-Windows-64.zip. So I'm simply going to click on this to download the files. I'll be back with you once the V2Ray Windows files have been downloaded to my desktop. Great, so the zip file has now been downloaded. What I'm going to do now is go to the download location. So I'm just going to click on this arrow here next to my download and click on show in folder. So as you can see, we've got a zip folder here, and I'm going to move this to my desktop. So I'm just going to restore down this window. I'm going to minimize my browser, go to left click and drag it onto my desktop. I'm now going to close out of my downloads folder to go back to my desktop. Great, so now I've got my V2Ray client-side files for my Windows operating system. As you can see, these files are a zip folder. What we'll need to do is unzip them using an extraction tool or decompression tool. Because I'm on Windows, the tool that I usually use is called WinRAR. If you'd like a step-by-step video on how to download and install WinRAR, I'll put a link in the video description below for your convenience, and as a card at the top right hand corner of this video for you to click on and watch. Once you've got WinRAR installed on your computer, right click on your V2Ray zip file and then click on show more options. Once you've done that, you'll be greeted with further options. The options that we're interested in are extract files, extract here, and extract to, and then the name of my zip file, which is V2Ray-Windows-64. This means that WinRAR will extract our zip file and create a separate folder with the same name as our zip file, which is exactly what we want. So I'm going to click on extract to V2Ray-Windows-64. V2Ray will then extract all the files in our zip file. And as you can see, I have a new folder now with all our files. I'm just going to double click on them just to show you all our V2Ray client-side config files. I'm now going to close out of this window. The next thing we need to do is create the V2Ray client-side config. To do this, you'll need to create a text document. Right-click anywhere on your desktop, go to new, and then click on text document. Once you've done that, just call this V2Ray and hit enter. Double click to open this text document. Of course, guys, it's going to be blank. I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to put in here, so I'm just going to open up another text document by double clicking on V2Ray client config text document, and I'm going to maximize this window. All this information in here will be in the video description below. So there's two things we need to change in here. First is the address and the ID. The ID has to match the UUID we added to our V2Ray server in the config.json file. It needs to be exactly the same. And our address, of course, is going to be bypass, and we're going to change domain to packet of crisps. So let's start by changing the address here. So I'm just going to delete the word domain, and I'm going to type in my own domain, which is packet of crisps. And then for the ID, I'm going to open up my browser and go back to my UUID generator. And I'm just going to copy again the same UUID that I generated for my V2Ray server config.json file. As long as you haven't refreshed the page, you'll still have the same UUID. Once you've copied your UUID, you can minimize your browser, and then right where it says ID, just delete what's there in the current default ID here, and then paste in your UUID that you copied. And now all I'm going to do is highlight everything in here. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to close out of this window as I no longer need it. And then in my blank V2Ray text document here, I'm going to paste it all in. I'm then going to click on File, Save As. I'm going to save it in my desktop here. I'm going to leave it as V2Ray, but I'm going to add .json. So right after the file name V2Ray, I'm going to type .json, and then I'm going to click on save. Once you've done that, you can close out of your text editor, and you should see a brand new file now which has a blank white icon called v2ray.json. So I'm just going to move that directly underneath the Qv2ray shortcut here. All that's left to do now is double click on the Qv2ray client to open it, click on preferences, and then click on kernel settings. In the kernel settings, you will need to select two file path locations. The first one is for the V2Ray core executable path and the V2Ray assets directory. For the V2Ray core executable path, to the right hand side of it, click on select, navigate to your desktop and look for your V2Ray-Windows-64, the folder that you extracted from the zip file. Double click on it to go into it, and then select the V2Ray executable file, which is the .exe. Once you've selected it, click on open. Next is the V2Ray assets directory. Click on select to the right hand side, go back to your desktop, and then all the assets are of course in the folder that you extracted from the zip file. So simply click on it once and then click on select folder. As you can see, the file path locations have updated. Now all that's left to do is click on OK. Now I'll need to import the v2ray.json file. To do this, click on import, click on advanced, and for the path, click on select, locate the v2ray.json file. As you can see, it's right here and it's on my desktop. I'm going to click on it and then I'm going to click on open. Once you've done that, simply click on import. And as you can see, the v2ray.json file has now been successfully added to our Qv2ray client. It's using the VMS protocol plus WS plus TLS. To connect to our V2Ray proxy server, all that's left to do is to left click on it to select it, and then click on the little play icon here at the top right to connect to our V2Ray proxy server. You'll know you're connected when the play icon changes to the disconnect icon, and you can see activity in the speed graph and in the logs. To show you that the V2Ray proxy server is indeed working, I'm just going to open up my browser, open up a new tab on Google, and I'm just going to type, "What is my IP address?" Once you've typed in this sentence, hit enter on your keyboard. You should then see your IP address at the very top of the search result, which in my case is 165.22.28.246. And if I go back to my DigitalOcean dashboard and then look at the IP address of my server, you can see it matches my current IP address, which is 165.22.28.246, which means we are connected to our V2Ray proxy server and our real IP address is masked. Alright, so that pretty much concludes the video on how to set up a V2Ray proxy server with a VPS, domain name, Nginx web server, Certbot to get a Let's Encrypt SSL certificate, and Qv2ray client. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, comment down below, and most importantly of all, subscribe to support the channel. I'll see you on the next video.
Why is it so